You're listening to the Wise Woman Podcast, Episode 2. I'm your host, Alisha Wielfaert, founder of Yoke and Abundance, a leadership, life, and creativity coaching business. This podcast is designed to inspire by introducing you to creative women living abundantly. I hope you'll savor Lindley's words of wisdom as much as I have. I'm very excited to introduce you to the photographer and my friend Lindley Battle. Lindley taught yoga at the studio I founded and has worked at Lululemon and is now one of the most sought-after photographers in the triad. She specializes in lifestyle photography, weddings, and branding shoots. I'm certain you'll glean many seeds of wisdom in today's conversation with Lindley. But first, a word from our sponsor. Today's episode is brought to you by Cheney Properties. Cheney Properties has specialized in restoring and leasing historic buildings in downtown Greensboro and near UNCG since 1982. That's as long as I've been alive. Personally, when I opened my first business, Greensboro Downtown Yoga, Dawn Cheney was not only excited about my vision and mission, she was a champion for what I was trying to create. The next time I need an office space or commercial property in Greensboro, I'll be calling Cheney Properties. Cheney Properties is excited to support female entrepreneurs in Greensboro, North Carolina. Visit cheneyproperties.com. That's CHANEY to see what's possible today. Now on to episode 2. Could you state your name for me?
I'm Lindley Battle.
Lindley Battle. And how old are you?
I am 27 years old.
27. It's a great age.
It's something. It's something.
So, one of the ways that I like to start is with an animal spirit card.
Ooh.
And the thing that I love about, so I use animal spirit cards with all of my clients, and I always tell them the same thing. I don't necessarily think that it's going to tell your future. It is a card game. But I love the wisdom in them, and I love using them almost like a camera lens, which, you know, if you put a different lens on a camera, you know this so well, but for the audience, like if you put a different camera lens on, you're going to see something a different way. Mm-hmm. And what I love about the animal spirit cards is I think it allows us to see where we are in life in a different way. So I always love playing that game. And I know you use animal spirit cards.
Yes.
How do you use them?
I just do a daily draw, and I think it's really interesting. One, I love the art, and it's really inspirational. And it's always nice to glean like a little something from them, kind of like just a pulse check. But I really enjoy like seeing, like stepping back and seeing, here's what I got from this. So therefore, here's what I'm dwelling on right now, or here's what's front of mind for me, because here's how I interpreted this card.
Absolutely. If you could put your hands on the cards and take a couple big, deep breaths. And when you're ready, just with your left hand, cut the deck. Flip that one over.
Ooh, the bee.
Oh, the bee.
I've gotten that one before.
Oh, so that's a creature of the air, which I think you know. And creatures of the air, what I love, what Krim Krantz says about them is that they're known to see more than others. But sometimes it's as if they're living in the clouds and not on the ground. So sometimes grounding can be really important. But I'm just going to read you what the bee says, refresh your memory with that. And then you can tell me how that hits for you.
Perfect.
Earnest, hardworking, democratic. The bee personality is a delight to be around, especially when there's a team project on the horizon. Bees love to work steadily and thoughtfully until the final task is complete. They are sensitive creatures aware of many subtleties at once. Since they're artists at heart, they usually add creative details to their overall vision. For the most part, they have bustling, joyous personalities until they're too tired from all the work. Then they gripe and then sting. When in balance, content, active, vibrant. When out of balance, overworked, annoyed. To bring into balance, a mini vacation.
That's so spot on. That's so funny. Okay, so what I get from, I mean, that's just me, except for maybe the group projects, because I'm like really not great at working with anyone outside of like clients, you know. But I mean, when it comes to like my personal projects, I'm very much a loner. But I mean, that's been my huge lesson recently, is like bringing in balance by taking space. And I'm actually going on a yoga retreat in 2 weeks.
Where are you going?
Tulum, my favorite place in the world. I'm so excited.
Tulum is gorgeous.
Oh, I love Tulum. I could go there. I mean, I would like to go there once a year. But yeah, so that's been kind of like, because my big crazy wedding season just ended. I just did like a crazy rebranding project with one of my main clients. It's just been like an insane few months. And I found myself just being like irritable and nasty and like not who I know that I am. And so I was like, I'm just booking this vacation. So
yeah, it seems like that's one of your tools, your go-to tools.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, it has been my entire adulthood, really. I work really, really hard, and then I disappear for a few weeks, and then I come back and work really, really hard again.
We just had on the Wise Women Wednesday panel, which you were at.
Yes.
I don't know if you caught this since you were busily working for me. But Jenny said how she will work. Jenny Stelly, who's the owner of Boho Blue, which is a women's clothing store, boutique clothing store. She said, I'll work really, really hard for 3 weeks, and then I have to go take a little mini vacation. Mm-hmm. So
it's so necessary. And that's like, it's interesting because, you know, just going through seasons of life, like when I started my current relationship, like he doesn't travel at all. And so for the first year we were together, I didn't travel because I wanted to share that experience. And, you know, I mean, it's just very interesting. And I noticed myself getting really discontent with our relationship, with myself, with my work. Like everything was just this like crazy. And it finally took me coming to this point of being like, this is what I need for me. Like, this is how I'm going to have to keep myself sane. So,
and travel is a big part of who you are.
Absolutely. Which is funny because, I mean, even what I touched on earlier, like my childhood, that was so not a thing. We didn't go anywhere. My parents don't like to travel. My dad, you know, doesn't like to go, or neither of my parents like to go crazy places. Like for me, I'm like, put me in Uganda for a year and I'll be happy as a clam. And, you know, I don't know, not anyone else in my family. So that was just something I kind of came to.
Yeah. Well, can you tell our lovely Yoke and Abundance audience a little bit about your background and how you ended up in the photography world with the business that you have?
Oh, that's a story. Yes, and I will try to keep it short. So I actually grew up in the area, grew up in Winston, and I went to like a small private school and was very different from that vibe. And so I immediately, as soon as I found photography when I was in 10th grade, I just like fell head over heels for it. Actually started working as an assistant to the sports photographer at our school, which was pretty cool. And just kind of went with that for a little bit. Applied early decision to an art school in Baltimore and just, you know, went like full force, didn't apply anywhere else. I think I probably terrified my parents, like stressed them out beyond words. But I was like, this is what I'm going to do and I'm going to do it. So I did it, got in, went up, did about half a year at the art school and was like, I can't do this. This is horrible. This is the worst decision I've ever made. Because I think as much as I love art, I'm also really analytical. I appreciate, you know, business and intellect. And so for me going to an art school where they were like, just lay in a field and like paint pictures of fairies, I was like, no, I don't want to do that. Like I want to, and even my photography teacher, I got a D in my freshman photography class. He almost failed me because he was like, you know, he was like, you just don't know what your style is. And I was like, but my style is like whatever my style needs to be for this project. Like I'm not, I mean, my personal photography isn't this like crazy, you know, artistic thing that you're going to frame on a wall. Like I want to do work that's actually going to say what it needs to say depending on what I'm shooting. So we butted heads, and I was a little jerk. I mean, I was a very rude child, so I was like not nice in telling him my opinion, I'm sure. But so I dropped out of art school. I moved to the most random place in the world. I actually did move to Uganda for a year, where I just took pictures and kind of tried to recalibrate and figure out who I was and what I wanted to do. And then when I came back, I began the process of building a business, which was crazy. And I worked retail and made connections and got, involved in the community. And eventually the time was right that I stopped doing those things and started Lindley Battle Photography.
That's incredible.
It's something.
Yeah.
It's been a wild ride.
I think that a lot of people listening to this would be surprised to hear that you got a D in photography. You got a D?
I got a D in photography.
And to me, you're one of the absolute most stellar photographers I've ever seen. I think that your ability to be flexible with what it is that you're doing. I mean, you can do something from extraordinarily artistic shots to branding shots to, your breadth and depth of work and the body of work that you're putting out, I think is pretty extraordinary. And I think it would give a lot of people hope too to hear what you just said. Seeing that work and knowing what you're capable of, I think it's going to give hope to a lot of people out there who are excited to be doing what they're doing and are afraid of other people's opinions. So when that happened to you, did it make you question what you did, or were you pretty opinionated? Were you able to kind of roll with it?
It's interesting because I think in so many elements of my life, I've always been like hugely self-questioning, like self-doubting. But when it comes to photography, like I don't think there's ever been a moment since I was 16 years old that I was like, oh, well, maybe this isn't right. Like it's crazy because it's like I've just somehow known. Like I don't know. I didn't know that I was ever going to be able to be where I am, but I also didn't know. Like I just didn't let myself have any other options. I was like, this is what I'm going to do. And so hearing things like that, I just was like, okay, well, I'll show you. Like, that's part of me being a little jerk, I guess. And I was really lucky to have, parents who, even though didn't always necessarily understand what I was doing, like they were really supportive of what I did and what I wanted to do. And didn't understand necessarily photography as much, but like always, encouraged me in what I was doing. So I came from feeling very supported. And also going to a small private school, really not a ton of other people were doing photography. So I was able to become known for that, which I think gave me enough, not ego, but just enough confidence in what I was doing to, so that if one person said like, I don't like what you're doing, or you don't know what you're doing, I was able to come back and be like, but no, I do. Which, I don't know that that's the most intelligent thing, but it worked out.
It's really important to be able to have that self-confidence. Is there a project right now that you are working on and really excited about?
I actually just finished it up. So part of what I do is I do product photography. And I'm really lucky to have a great boss who just sends me product and says, do your thing. And I've been working on and off with this company for like 4 or 5 years, and it's really cool because it's super out of my comfort zone. Like a lot of what we do is like branding medical shoes, medical scrubs, stuff like that, which I've never really interacted with. But we just got a line of athletic style shoes, and I actually got to fly down to St. Croix for a couple days and shoot these shoes, and it's just really neat to like, I don't know, it's this crazy feeling to have this brand that you are just creating like the look for. You're creating how people view this brand with each photo. So there were maybe 30, 40 shoes in this specific line, and I just got to run around an island for a couple days and shoot photos of them and then come back here and shoot more photos. And I finished editing them last night actually and sent everything off. But it's just so interesting to know that thousands of people are going to see this brand and see it a certain way because of the images that I take. So that's like, that lights me up. That gets me so jazzed.
Yeah, you get to shape perception.
Yeah, which is, it's such a huge responsibility with something like that, because that's, it determines whether or not a brand succeeds or fails, how people think of the brand, what they associate with the brand is what's going to cause them to buy the brand. So I don't know. I get so geeky about stuff like that.
Yeah. And that is something I think a lot of the listeners of this podcast appreciate, though, because there's a lot of entrepreneurs and aspiring entrepreneurs, and they get it. They understand how important that marketing is. Did you have to have a lot of conversations with the owner of the company about their vision, their mission, their why, anything like that?
None. I mean, we've been working together for long enough that I think he's pretty confident to just send me stuff and be like, do your thing. And he even says that. He's like, you do your Lindley thing. And I'm like, all right, I got you. But yeah, I mean, we had a brief phone call, and he was like, I just see us branding this line differently than the other line we've been working with. And I'm like, I totally agree. And it was kind of just this folding conversation where he was like, I'm thinking this. And I was like, I'm thinking this look. And he was like, exactly. And so it just went from there. But yeah, I mean, and this isn't the first. We've done a couple different like spin-off lines, and I always get so excited and like fall back into this little cave of research, and I'm like, this is the exact look that I want for this brand. And I don't know, it's just neat.
So you do quite a bit of research then before you start shooting?
I do research before every single shoot, whether it's a portrait shoot or a branding shoot or anything. I mean, research on the person or the company, or whatever I'm going to go interact with in front of the camera. I want to know as much about as I can, and then also just how I want this to look based on what I know about what I'm shooting. There's a lot of front end and back end work to photography.
Right, and I think that people think you're just quote unquote coming to shoot.
Yup.
But there's the research, which I don't think I realized quite how much research goes in on the front end. There's the prepping for the shoot, making sure you have all the equipment ready. And then there's the shoot itself. And then I know that there is an extraordinary amount of editing that goes into it as well.
Absolutely.
And we forget how time consuming that is. It's not just point and shoot.
It's funny because I actually, in the past few years, I've gotten a lot less pushback on pricing, just because I'm really lucky that I think the clients who find me know enough about me that they are confident that I'm not trying to cheat them, or that I'm going to do good work for them and that I'm going to be worth their money. But in the beginning, especially, I got a ton of pushback on pricing, and I was like, if you break it down hour by hour, like I'm not making anything on this,
You're undercharging.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've done a lot of research into pricing for especially things like weddings, where I've actually got 3 unedited weddings sitting on my desktop right now, which kind of makes me want to cry, because that's like 3 weeks of just staring at a computer. I mean, it's like nonstop.
Just looking at the pictures.
Yeah.
And, yeah, I can imagine. Well, I'm wondering, what's one thing you've done recently that's scared you and took courage, but you're really glad you did?
That's a big one. I think for me, like, I've started saying no to a lot, and to work, which is crazy, because when I first started, and even up until super recently, like, every work was good work. And I don't know, it finally hit me. I'm so stubborn, so it takes like 45 different times for me to be like, oh yeah, this may not be the right thing. But I was driving to a shoot for a client who had been pretty regular, but it was just not, it wasn't really in line with what I wanted to be doing, and it also just wasn't, it just didn't fit. And so I had this aha moment of like, not all inquiries are inquiries that I need to take. Not all work is work I need to take. And by taking more of the work that really is in line with who I am as a brand, and less of the work that is just work to take, I'm going to end up getting more of the work that I want to get. So
absolutely.
But that was crazy. I mean, just getting to a point where I felt comfortable turning down some business was this like huge terrifying moment of like, well, what happens when things slow down and like nobody wants to hire me for family portraits? And then I just had all these what ifs, and I mean, I'm fine.
I love that. I absolutely love and adore that, because for me, when I work with clients and we talk about only doing the things that align with your own core values, that's exactly what you're just describing. You understood that that particular shoot wasn't going to align with your core values. And so if it doesn't light you up, it's not like the product that you're going to produce might not be something that you're excited about either. So it's a win-win for both parties to just say, no, maybe there's somebody else that can do this.
Exactly. Well, and it's crazy. I've been trying to get my business social media life together, which is like a whole nother animal. But I've found that when I'm working on shoots that I love and that like really light me up, I can't wait to share them, whether it's like on my stories or I'm like throwing out sneak peeks left and right or texting them to my clients. Like, I can't wait to send these to you. And I want to feel that way about everything I shoot. So yeah, taking projects that I know I'll feel that way about is just my new thing.
Yeah. And it's a way of being intelligently discriminating for yourself.
Exactly.
It's really beautiful.
Thank you
for sharing.
Oh, yeah.
What would you tell your high school or college self? If you could go back and sit little Lindley down and say, this is something you need to know, what would you tell her?
Man. I guess to trust the process a lot more. I just felt like I had to take control of everything. And I don't know. I mean, I think that I was just a really anxious and upset kid because I didn't trust that everything would work out okay. I guess just to sit back and chill out and enjoy the moment and trust that things will work out.
Are you able to practice that now? Do you see now how you're able to trust the process more?
It's a daily struggle, but yes, a lot more so. It's in the back of my mind instead of being out in the universe.
So what are some of the tools you employ to tap into that intuition?
Yoga and meditation are huge, and meditation is like I strong arm meditation daily. I don't want to meditate. It's hard. It's as soon as I sit down to meditate, I'm like, oh, but this email, or oh, this phone call, or oh, these photos that I need to work on. But as soon as I finish, I'm like, oh, okay, now I can approach everything with ease. So yoga and meditation are huge. Just breathing, really. I mean, just sitting back. I feel like I have a lot of different aspects of my business and like different pursuits that won't get done unless I do them. So a lot of times I get really like overwhelmed and anxious and try to do 45 things at once. And so just sitting back and breathing and like assessing the situation and being like, okay, like it's going to be okay. This is going to get done. I think is the biggest and most like, commonly applicable tool.
Absolutely. Is there one piece of advice or motto that you love to use in your daily life or that you'd like to share with everyone?
How do you feel about explicatives on your show?
Go for it.
Okay. Do no harm, take no shit. That's my be good to people, but also don't be a doormat. That's been a big one for me. You got to stand up for yourself, but you also have to be really kind. It's my daily.
It's a balancing act, right?
Exactly, absolutely. And there's such a fine balance. I mean, you can't get out there and be just this like really intense, hard person all the time. But at the same time, like if you're too soft, people will think they can walk on you. And I've been walked on a lot.
Creating is your job. So not only are you an artist, but it is your job. It's what you get paid the dollar bills to do, right? So when you don't feel like it, what helps?
That's interesting. I actually had a moment like this the other day. I think for me, moving my body, being in nature, and also because I am so visual, like I'll see something and it'll just wake me up. Like I had a day the other day where I didn't want to edit. I had a bunch of these shoes that I needed to finish up shooting and I just didn't want to do it. I was just being kind of bummy. And so I went for a walk and it was right about sunset. And this is going to be so cliche, but I saw the sun streaming through this giant tree in the neighborhood. And it it was insane. All of a sudden it was just this click. And I went inside and finished shooting 20 shoes like a mad person. Like it was just bam, bam, bam. Everything I did like worked out. I went and edited like a crazy person. It was just this instant, like just seeing that sunlight, I was like, oh yeah, like this is what I love. So
big jolt of inspiration.
Yeah, just taking myself out of myself, being in nature. And then if I don't have the time or luxury of doing that, then working out. Just we have a spin bike at the house because I don't have time to go to the gym. So just a 20-minute spin, and I get off and I'm like, oh yeah, okay, I'm awake now. I can do this.
Right. Well, I know that you love yoga. I mean, it's part of how you and I know each other.
Yes.
So what's your favorite yoga pose?
That's tough. I've just been really, really loving down dog and really reappreciating down dog lately. And a lot of times I have a mat next to my desk, and just in all candor, have not had time for a full practice in a really long time. So if things are getting crazy, or if I just need to step away, like I'll get on my mat and just sit in down dog for a few minutes and just stretch everything out. It feels so good.
Yeah. And something you just said made me think, as yoga instructors, it's been so drilled into us how important having our own personal practices, and we forget that the simplicity is just in doing what you just said, that really what it's about is incorporating it into your daily life in little small digestible pills. That's the yoga, is weaving it into your day on a regular basis. Like, that's the practice.
Well, and I think that's so important to share with students. And that's like, I only teach 2 classes, and neither of them are at a studio. And I think you've subbed a few for me. And I think that's what's so important to give students is like, you don't have to like drive to a studio and put on your best yoga clothes and blow out your hair. Like you don't have to be prepared to come do yoga. Just do it where it fits into your life. Do it how it works for you. I mean, it's not always going to look pretty, and it's, it rarely ever looks pretty, honestly.
It's just show up.
Yeah, exactly. Hear what your body needs and answer that.
I'm wondering if you can tell us, when was a time when you felt most wise?
I think when I can openly admit to people how little I do feel like I know is when I feel the most wise. Like, I feel like there are a lot of situations where people come to me and they're like, whether it's teaching or through something else, they're like, how do you do this? Or I get a lot of aspiring photographers who reach out to me, or a lot of aspiring business owners, and they're like, how do you do this? And instead of the BS and being like, oh, well, this and this and this and this and that, and being like, I don't know, and I still don't know. And something like, I'll get a call from my accountant and realize that I've been doing something wrong for 3 years and that I had no idea. And there's so much that I don't know, and I think wisdom is admitting that I'm learning like everyone else. So those moments where I'm able to be like, I had no idea, those are what I feel the most wise.
Being able to say I don't know is such a way to stand in your own power.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And not having to know, and not having to put that pressure on yourself to know, just being able to be in question constantly, because everything changes. I mean, you know something one day and then it's different tomorrow. So
absolutely, especially in this entrepreneurial world that we're in, it's like you figure one thing out, just like you said, and you're trying it again the next.
And you think you're like, oh yeah, I've got this all together and I'm doing this all right, and something falls out of the sky and you're like, nope, I have no idea what I'm doing. Actually, that's cool.
I gotta try something new.
Yep.
So what would you tell a woman who maybe doesn't feel very wise right now, or is doubting her own wisdom?
You got to pull back and listen to yourself, because it's all in there. I mean, it's absolutely in there. There's not a person that I've met who doesn't have it. You just have to pull back, figure out what you need, and listen to yourself to find it. Because it's definitely in you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And what about abundance? How do you live a life of abundance?
I think expecting good things to happen has been really key for me. And almost like what I was talking about at the beginning, where instead of actively manifesting these good things, it's just like never thinking that bad things are going to happen, never assuming the worst, never being negative, and trying as much as possible to just constantly expect for things to go right. And they usually do. And then when something doesn't, you get to be disappointed, but I'd so much rather live expecting good things to come.
I was listening to a podcast today, and I can't remember the name of the person. I'll have to put it in the show notes. But the person who was being interviewed, I don't know his name. I'll find it and put it in the show notes. But he said his gratitude practice, something he's playing with right now, is then when the things do go wrong, being grateful for the things that you don't like.
Oh, that's cool.
And I thought that's really interesting. So being able to find the lesson or being able to figure out in those things what we don't, the gratitude in that experience.
Yeah, that's really neat. And that's, I mean, with anything, you can look at things and, you know, get down on them or choose to grow from them. And everything you can learn from, everything you can create a new plan from. And especially as a business owner, like, I mean, no matter what happens, every time it happens, you just realize, oh, well, this is what I can do for next time to, you know, ensure that this doesn't happen. Or, but even in bad situations too, there are great things that come out of them, and there are, you know, people do come save you, or life does come to save you, and then you're grateful for those people and those things.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being a part of my podcast.
Thank you. I'm so honored.
I hope you were inspired by Lindley's words of wisdom. If you've enjoyed this podcast, head over to iTunes, give us a review, and share this podcast with your friends so we can keep bringing wise words your way. Check out our website, yokeandabundance.com, for more words of wisdom, creativity tips, and information about my group and individual coaching programs. Tell us about your wise moments from this week. When did you feel most wise? Tag us on Instagram with your wise moment from the week for a chance to have your wise words shared on this podcast. Use the hashtag #IamWise and Yoke and Abundance. A huge thank you to our sponsor, Cheney Properties, and our editor and producer, Ira Sterling at Julia Sound Recordings. Remember, every one of us has wisdom within. Keep sharing your words of wisdom because you never know who you'll inspire.